one-on-one.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
How you doing? Good, good. I think we're about it now, with the possible exception of Carla. So, yeah. Hey, Joseph, can you, you probably already know this, but when you move things like the remotes and whatnot round, and the mic, they make a hang of a noise.
Do you want me to mute it?
Can you do that? Oh, well, yeah, maybe, is there a volume control on the thing?
Not that I'm... Just mute it, and if I ask Ned a question, I'll just turn it on and ask.
Would you mind?
No, that's fine.
Sorry about that, there's a pain in the neck. I was sitting all day at a meeting yesterday, not to do with this, and it just went drove us nuts.
Yeah.
Right, now the first thing to check is, do you guys have those planning handouts that I produced last week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had one, Zane, I think.
Yeah, I
Oh, lemonade, yeah. Yeah,
Lemonade,
yeah, I think
big
I've got that.
business.
Yeah, I've got one.
No, I don't think I have one, Ian. Should I ask Diane for one, or...?
Yes. Yeah, I'm not going to be talking about it too long, so don't worry too much, Joseph. But see if she's got one. Flick me an email.
Okay.
Flick me an email tomorrow if she hasn't.
Okay, do you want me to go check? I'll just go quick.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it would have come
What
up.
was it? Was it planning?
Yeah, it would have come up last week. Well, yes, you're welcome, because for some reason or another I double printed those, so it wasn't very efficient. Now, I don't really propose to laboriously go over that planning thing because it's, in its essence, it's fairly simple. But if the main thing to do here is to think about, firstly, I haven't read it carefully, but I can just about bet your assessment will ask you to talk about types of plans. So if you look down that first page of the handout, you'll see strategic plans, tactical plans, operational plans, other plans, and obstacles to plans. And it's well set out in your textbook. It's fairly straightforward, so I don't think that's too much of an issue. Apart from when you're doing an assessment assignment. Have you got it?
I've got it. I'll just turn my mic off now, Ian.
Yeah, good on you. So there's those types of plans there, page 197 in your text when you get to it. And if you just reasonably make sure you understand those, but apart from which it's an assessment, so if you're at home or something, you can look it up. The next one is management by objectives. In a nutshell, that means that an organisation has a strategic plan and then some functional plans like a marketing plan, a production plan, an HR plan and a financial plan. So they sort of lay out beneath the strategic plan and then so on. Now, what happens is, by management by objectives, the whole thing starts with goals and objectives. So there will be goals and objectives for, say, a marketing plan. Then beneath that, there will be some objectives for salespeople or for an advertising person. So the whole thing hangs together by objectives. Which will show in your book, but that's the real essence of it. I've got to be a bit careful I don't get too carried away because I think that system is fairly fraught and very complicated, but it's textbook stuff, so there it is. A little bit further down, there is right at the bottom a thing called SWOT, S-W-O-T. That's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And at the very back of the handout, there's a chart that talks a little bit about strategic planning approaches. I think your assessment one will be interested in the management by objectives and in a thing called PESTEL, which I think you will have done.
Yeah.
PESTEL. And I think in your assessment you will be asked to look at a case study and talk about SWOT, SWOT,
SWOT,
and PESTEL.
that's what's political, economic, socio-demographic, technological, and legal, I think is the last one.
Now the only slight track for young players in the PESTEL is that, in my humble experience, a few students get a bit confused between political and economic, because they are a bit intertwined. So political would, I'm just giving you a bit of a hairy example really, but political would include things like New Zealand is one of the relatively few countries that has an MMP system, and a fairly short election cycle, and this inevitably it leads to negotiations with minor parties and can create quite a lull in the system for a while that happens.
Mr. Peters, anyone?
Yeah. Economics, the main features of New Zealand economics is probably to say that it tends to be a reasonably free and open market economy, and so we tend to have a globalised approach. We import stuff, we export stuff, we have a lot of immigrants and a lot of international trade, etc., etc., etc. And the other feature of the New Zealand economy is that the Reserve Bank in New Zealand is reasonably independent of the government, and it sets interest rates from time to time, and that ultimately influences the interest rates on mortgages and business loans and overdrafts and this sort of thing. PESTEL. Socio thing, I'm sure you'll be able to write about the socio thing. Law, for business purposes, we have quite a well-developed consumer legislation, Fair Trading Act, Consumer Guarantees Act, very comprehensive Resource Management Act, which worries some people, and health and safety legislation, to distraction. So I think you'll be all right for that. I'm more than happy if you beavering away at your assessment and really seriously can't find something, you can always send me an email. Right, the topic this week then is controlling. So, using the handout for a moment in the headings, which aren't very many, the text is the textbook chapter 15, and if you perhaps turn to page 539, you'll get a brief look at the context of this. So the top at 559, there's a little chart which tends to hang it all together quite nicely.
59.
559? 559?
You said 5:30.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Me clean my glasses. 559. So linking a little bit this planning and a few other things. So we have some goals and we've probably got some sort of plan for the future to make something, produce something, or provide some sort of service. And so that comes somewhat from the planning process. Then we have to organise to get our production or our delivery of services and all this sort of rest moving towards matching our goals. And that is the essence really of organising and controlling. The leading bit you'll come to later, that's when Kate will probably start talking about the essence of leadership is really motivating people to do things, either with a very long whip or ways of coercing and encouraging people, one or the other. So, if we look at these slides and just a wee bit of a guideline, maybe if it would actually do something. All of these things have a definition, so that's a definition, and the slide printouts are immediately behind the type headings here. The slight weakness worth talking about something in this way is that if you are engaged in some sort of business activity like gold mining or running a restaurant or being an accountant or something like that, the whole idea is that you are getting your organising so that the performance conforms to the organisation's goals and standards. The weakness of that argument is, of course, you could be running down a railway track when the earthquake shifts the railway track out into the sea type of argument, where you can't, you're assuming that the organisational goals and standards stay reasonable. You can't just slavishly go on doing things just because you put them in a plan. And so you can end up getting a bit too tied into plans and goals and standards. So, these are the main things that happen when we are trying to control our activity. There is always uncertainty. The weather, the dairy price levels, the coal prices, the number of tourists, all of this sort of thing. There's the extent to which, in controlling, extent to which we decentralise authority. Now, in an organisation, am I constantly managing Zane and managing Michelle and managing everybody? Or am I saying, I don't need to or don't want to do this, that you be responsible for this, the one you do, and you'll have the authority to do it, you'll be fired if you don't or something like that. And Zane, the same thing. So we decentralising it
So
out.
it's having authority spread out.
Yes. Detecting irregularities. Now that's part of the essence and control, is making sure you have either an approach that you are doing yourself or some targets or other things in your plan that you can keep a track of whether things are going okay, or get an early warning of, oops, hang on a minute, the old sales have dropped a bit there.
Bottleneck, as Lee said. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got head on it. I think Michelle might have heard this story. We used to make bikes. We made thousands of bikes. And our bottleneck was painting them. And you have to have a very good painter for bikes, unfortunately, and they weren't that common. So, come up to Christmas time, you're going to make a lot more bikes. And so we decided what we'd have to do is figure out how we could, the paint booth was the bottleneck. Quite a significant bottleneck. So the first thing we did was get another staff member that wasn't the painter to bring him the bike frames and shove them on the rack so that he could just keep painting. You couldn't do that for too long because the pack B of the paint had a lot of cyanide in it, so you had to move them away every now and then to let them breathe. But anyhow, so he came to work one morning, and unbeknown to me, he was actually a very enthusiastic roller skater. So he came to work, we had a big concrete floor and roller skates so he could move around quick. I think he was having me on. Bottleneck. Liz might have talked about that in your course.
Yeah, good.
Being
Yeah.
honest about, I can't
Yeah.
think of the name of it. He's got a book, hasn't he, that talks
Yeah,
about
the
that?
small business, yeah, we've been over
Yes,
it.
yeah.
The quality control.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. He got all enthusiastic about this book which talks about bottlenecks, and he's quite right. Okay, so that's the identifying opportunities. The world doesn't stay the same. So there can be opportunities that come up that you hadn't actually thought of, and you need to identify them quite quickly, or somebody else will beat you to it. And handling complexity. That's something where a manager who's endeavouring to control some process is sensible enough to look at anything that's getting too complex and unravelling it a bit. You won't remember that phrase, I don't think. I'm not sure which course I put that in, the Theory K, where it said that you... Leadership. Theory K, when you look at things on the KISS principle. Keep it short and simple. And in most of our processes in this day and age, we don't keep it short and simple. We seem to make it as complex as we possibly can. So it's a good lesson, that one. Right. This is the process, the textbook process. And it's really just lining up what should be done in a reasonable order. Now, what is not in your books, and which seems to have drifted a bit into the wild blue yonder, is a process called total quality management, which is very like this, and it was very vogue at one time, and we still have quite a lot of total quality management running around the systems, and it had one unique thing about it. It was one of the very few management processes which had a series of international standards. And so that meant that an overseas supplier could say, righto, we want to buy bikes from you, but we want you to be an ISO 9001 quality supplier. So it's like almost like getting a ticket or a license, and they come around and audit what you're doing. And it's a lot to do with establishing standards, measuring performance, comparing performance, and taking corrective action, all this sort of thing.
Total quality management, wasn't that one of the things mentioned in the first assessment we had for this class?
It
think that was,
Could we, this is where it would pop up in this course, if it was going to. TQM, Total Quality Management. In the very early days, when everybody was getting enthusiastic about quality, the Japanese were the leading country in the world to get into this quality. And there's a story told when they were having to send out a container of bike parts, they were gears or something like that. And the order said, I've got to get the wording right here, the order said, faulty products to be not more than 2% of the order. Faulty products not to be more than 2% of the order. In other words, they didn't want too many rejects. So when the container came out, there was a box in the top that nobody could decide what it was. It had some bits and pieces in it, and it was taped and it was labelled and everything as if it was supposed to come. So they contacted the Japanese supplier, and the Japanese supplier said, well, you said on your order that you wanted not less than 2% faulty products. So we put 2% faulty products in the order. Because they said, we never have faulty products. We use Total Quality Management. So that was a bit of language going on here too. So now this is on your handout, the feed forward, concurrent and feedback. And it's in your book on page 5, 6, 7. And because I am endlessly generous, it's also in your assignment that you're getting. It is actually a simple, the three things are quite simple. In organisations, we are transforming inputs, money, materials, people, and turning resources through whatever process we're using to do whatever we're doing to come out the end to produce outputs. Meals being served in a restaurant, gold coming out of the gold hoppers, coal coming out of the coal mine, milk coming out of the milk processing plants, and so on and so on. That is the concurrent bit, the bit that is happening when we're transforming inputs to outputs. The middle bit, concurrent bit, that bit. The feed forward is talking about ensuring that we have the inputs that are correctly available to do the transformation process, turning the inputs into the outputs. So we're looking forward to ensure that we've got the people we need in place, the materials we need in place, the money we need in place, and the facilities and all this sort of thing. Current control is the process itself, and the feedback control is looking back after we've done it to ensure that the final output is what we want it to be, quality-wise and all the rest. How could we tell if a bicycle that came off a production line and went into a carton and the carton was all set up, ready to go, how could we tell reasonably easily if that bike had everything it should have on it?
Have a quality control stamp.
You could put a stamp on it, yes, but how would you know that all the bits were on it? Because you couldn't see it by the end, it was all in a carton, wrapped up.
I don't know, try and put it together.
Standards?
Yeah, sort of, yeah. What do they do in the bank when they got a huge heap of money in a bag and they don't want to count it all? What do they do?
Oh, they weigh it.
They weigh it. So what would you do with the box?
Oh, you weigh it.
You weigh it. And then if you left the pedals out, then the weight would be different than it should be. So that's where Joseph's standards come in. You know the bike is going to weigh 13 kilograms or something precisely, and if it doesn't, then you know you've got a problem. You've either put too many in or too few in.
I suppose it'd be a small sort of larger, you know, like say if what if the cardboard for the box, like the sort of
No, it should be,
difference.
no, it should be a fairly precise weight.
I mean, like with that, like
Yeah.
a few grams or
Oh
something.
yeah, but there's not many bike parts that are only just a few grams. The old handlebar grips are probably about the lightest thing. Anyhow, so you might just like to reinforce in your minds that you're probably going to be asked to talk a little bit intelligently about those 3 types of control. We can ignore that. These are ways that organisations sometimes will approach the way they make a control system. So in a bureaucratic system, you have layers and rules and processes and procedures and managers and goodness knows what else. In the clan system, to use a bit of jargon, it's more holistic, there's more delegation, and there's more reliant on informal relationships and a groupie type of approach to what we're doing. So in the old total quality management days, we used to organise people up into things called quality circles, and they made a lot of the decisions that they would, that in other companies would be made for them. In most weeks, you would have a short meeting of your quality circle, and the first thing you did was, right, last week we decided we were going to do this and this and this. Did it work? Yes or no? If it worked, good. If it didn't work, wait a minute, we better have another think about it. One of those instances, the quality circle was working on the business of cutting up tubes. When you're making a bike, of course, you end up cutting up a whole lot of long tube into all the bits that go on the frame. And because you don't want to overheat the metal in any way, because you would make it brittle and the frames would break, you have to cold cut it. You can't get one of those high-speed cutters and just go zook like that through it. That would put too much heat on it. So they had to go through this saw, and it poured an oily sort of stuff down onto it, and it went through quite slowly. And this, of course, was the problem. It was very slow. And somebody had the bright idea, why don't we put all 3 of the cutting machines and link them all together on a bar, and then the whole 3 will come down onto the long piece of tube and chop up 3 bits. That was quite a smart idea. Pretty simple. But it trebled the number you could get through in the same time. It wasn't my idea, actually. In this day and age, you'd probably use a laser cutter or something like that, and just jump like that. We can, apart from negative attitudes, and negative attitudes occur whenever you're working in a business organisation. It's an overall problem, it's not just a problem of control. So, this is the sort of things that are necessary to have an effective control system. Page 5, 7, 2. A little bit over halfway down, you'll see a heading there, characteristics of an effective control system. And with a bit of luck, they should be the same, much the same as on that PowerPoint and the PowerPoint printout. So those are all of the things that would make up an effective control system. Now, assuming I can work the electronics, I'll let somebody else's voice go over this slightly different perspective, but telling us about this sort of thing. And let's see if we can maybe do this.
Sam, the manager of TQM Auto Repair Shop, recently set goals for his business. First, Sam must establish standards, or a set of requirements for his business. Sam is working on the first step, establishing standard. Sam wants to make $100,000 more this year than he did last year, so he can replace older equipment in the repair shop. Raising the price of repairs can do this. This is a financial goal. It is important not to take customers for granted. A goal to increase customer satisfaction from 84% last year to 90% this year is set. Customer service
Can you see that,
satisfaction
Joseph?
must increase by 6% this year. This is a customer service related goal. Sam sets a goal to increase the quota or a goal set for production for the amount of cars each mechanic must repair each week. This is a production goal. With all of the new goals Sam set for the repair shop over the past week, employees may not be able to keep up with the workload. To ensure the goals are met, Sam must devise a way to measure the productivity and performance of his employees. This measurement is compared with the goals he set above, or the preset standards. Once he evaluates the information, Sam can provide feedback to each employee. This will help them make improvements to their work. This is an employee performance appraisal. Sam developed the standard for what he would like to accomplish in the above step. Now, he needs to develop a way of determining whether the goals are being met. Sam creates a new pricing guide, a customer satisfaction survey, a sales quota system, and an employee evaluation system. Sam is working on the second step, measuring actual performance. Sam will present the new pricing guide to employees. He explains his plan for raising much needed revenue to each employee so the employee understands the reason for the price increase. It is important to include employees in setting goals. If Sam's employees understand the reason for the price increase, they will be more likely to buy into the goal. Sam also introduces the customer satisfaction survey to his customers. Each customer will fill out a survey in where they will rate their experience based on many factors, like timeliness of repairs, quality of work, price, friendliness of mechanics, and ease of payment. Sam also has to develop a way to measure how many cars are being repaired by each mechanic on a weekly basis to be sure that the amount of repairs done weekly, monthly, and in a year add up to the desired goal of increasing revenue by $100,000 set forth above. He introduces the mechanics to a repair quota system. Each mechanic must fix 10 engines, patch 5 tires, and replace 15 windshield wipers each week. That means that each mechanic must bring in about $280 in revenue each week to reach the goal. Once broken down for the mechanics, the goal is realistic and attainable. The toughest challenge for Sam will be to introduce the employee appraisal system. He uses a system that involves the employees setting goals for themselves and Sam setting goals for the employees. After chatting with each employee, Sam is able to determine the criteria for acceptable performance. He will include sales quota system from above, dependability, reliability, motivation, and absenteeism in the appraisal. He will sit down with each employee to explain the process. If employees have input in setting goals for themselves, they are much more likely to achieve the goals. As time goes by, Sam needs to monitor the process to be sure it is working. Sam is comparing performance with the standard. Sam reviews his repair receipts and income statements each month to be sure he is on target for his financial goal of increasing revenue by $100,000. Sam also reviews the customer satisfaction surveys each week. He documents the percentages in his spreadsheet. He compares each survey percentage change with that of the previous year to determine whether there are positive changes in customer satisfaction. Sam reviews the daily and weekly receipts to determine whether the mechanics are meeting their quota set above. He documents the various work done by each mechanic on a spreadsheet. He compares this to the standard he set in the first step. Finally, Sam needs to be sure that employees are meeting their goals set in the employee appraisal. While this cannot be done as frequently, like counting receipts or crunching numbers, it can be done every 6 months to a year. When the time comes, Sam will sit down with each employee on an individual basis to discuss progress towards the goals they set together. He will compare the actual progress towards the standard set for each employee. There is no doubt that some of the actual performances will fall short of the standards set in the first step. When this occurs, Sam will have to make important decisions. He will make changes in the way things are being done. In other words, he will be taking corrective action. For instance, if Sam determines that the price increases are causing customer satisfaction percentages to plummet, he will need to restructure pricing or change the level of service. Maybe it is as simple as providing customers with a free lunch while they wait. It could be that Sam will have to decrease prices to retain customers. He may even have to look for new customers. Sam may determine that employees just cannot keep up with the quotas. Sam will have to revisit the quotas. Perhaps the shop needs to be reconfigured so employees can maneuver around the cars more efficiently. Perhaps Sam needs to discipline mechanics that are not keeping up with the pace. Whatever decision Sam makes, he will have to go back to the drawing board and begin the controlling process all over.
Now, fairly shortly, I'll give you out that new assessment and go over that with you a bit, just so that you're connected up, and I'm making sure that we haven't missed out somewhere back there between Kate and I. Before I do that, I might run you another DVD, it's not very long, called The Parable of the Ants. Have you heard of that? No? Okay. Parable of the Ants. What it's on about, really, is that particularly public service organisations like polytechnics, Ministry of Social Welfare, and councils and the health service really have appeared to have taken this controlling function through much more intensely over the years than they were originally. Now, tell me if you think I'm right, but I hear of people who, for instance, work in the social services, like and the people that have clients like WINS and this sort of thing. And there are more people doing backroom and desk jobs than there are actually people going out and working with the clients. And in the Polytechnic, there are more people doing backroom jobs than there are actually teaching classes. And in some private sector organisations, much the same sort of thing happens. And one wonders how much worse it's going to get before finally it starts to get better. It seems to be in a cycle. So, I'll just run you the parable of the ants.
What was that called, Ian?
Pardon? It's
What was that one
it's
called?
I'm calling it the parable of the ants. I think it's just called the ants. Do you want me to send you the link so that you can just click on it?
Yeah, no, that's pretty good, that, eh?
Yeah, I'll send it out to your. Actually, what I quite like about it, you can use it almost anywhere. Sorry?
It's in the back here, so.
Yeah, but yes, you can read it in the back of your handout if you want to, but it comes across quite well if you want to use it because it's got the music and the.
So it's been changed now.
It definitely describes how businesses are these days, very top heavy.
I think it's very, all of those things, we sort of recognise all of those things, don't we? Right from this notion that you have to manage people, do you really? And going to, you have a supervisor and you have IT and you have graphs on all your reports and all of this sort of thing. And the poor old ant who used to do his job quite well, salutary lesson.
Why is it becoming like that
I think there's two reasons. Because once people start getting bees in their bonnets, you know, and it happened with total quality management, you started to get people that weren't just working as managers or whatever, supervisors, so all of a sudden they became specialists in quality management. It's a bit like health and safety now, you get these specialists, and they keep on thinking, oh, I think we're going to paint those fence posts white. And then the next thing is, well, maybe we should put rubber caps on all of them, and so on and so on and so on. It just seems to escalate. And it's the same with teaching, you know, all of a sudden you can, oh, hang on, we should probably regulate this to make sure everybody gets an exact this and an exact that, without worrying so, and forgetting almost about the outcome or the output you're supposed to get. Now I know I'm showing my age, but I can't help it. I haven't been in this game all my life, but I've probably been in it about 10 years in the Polytech and 5 years in the Chinese university. But I will swear on any stack of Bibles that with all the stuff that has come through, that the output of you guys going out of this process is absolutely no better than it was 15 years ago, and might even be worse. You know, maybe I'll take a few Bibles off the pile, but all I can do is urge you, if I were to preach about it, is you've got to face up to these things. They're all here. It's all about compliance. And the other thing is that we have vastly more data available now. We collect it all up so we can have performance rates. And we are measured on our, for example, on our retaining rate for students, or completion rates, you know, being 80%, so so they can ask us questions if too many drop off and things like that. And so, if I'm preaching about it, all I can say is try and look, if you can, for some simpler ways of getting to where you want to get without too much clutter. Kate will tell you I've got a beard in my eyes very much. She'll put me right. Right, the assessment.
Yeah, this is the assessment we've already been given.
What?
Jane.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I've probably done this twice, actually. I'm scared of not doing it. You've got this, have you?
We're
Yeah.
pretty glad to
Yes,
see
once.
and explain.
Yeah, June expects.
It's assessment too.
Yeah.
Well, this,
So it should be 3 that you should have given us tonight.
well, just it doesn't sort of seem to be
No,
right.
but the one I've
Two
given
sessions
you
of
is
the same
June
class.
the 11th of October.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
exactly the same as what we've already got.
Yeah, yeah.
Got.
And you've done it.
Yeah.
No.
Well, it's
No.
June next week.
Okay.
No, no,
I'll do
this-
the 11th.
We'll definitely take the 11th of October.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll take the 11.
No, the 11th of October, I did that deliberately because you had a wee bit of a...
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, and I wasn't entirely sure that you had...
Oh, okay.
Now, I want to.
Yes, yes,
Same-
this
same
is due a week
assessment.
I thought
later.
so much, I want you another week.
Okay, oh, well, yeah, relax, because I'm obviously, one way and another, thinking you hadn't had that and I had to sort of catch you up.
You know, she gave us the template so we can.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she
Email
emailed
it.
it. all.
so you're in the middle of doing it, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you mightn't be all that sorry if I just ran over a few
No, no, yeah,
tracks
she
for young
did,
players.
because
She should have
a
emailed.
lot of bits stuff that we did tonight at the last week's session.
Oh, really?
Right.
You know, it's all this. She emailed even there and yeah, all this. So then you can, you know, type in there.
Right, so, folks, you need for this firstly to read, learn and inwardly digest
Scully Scott.
Scully's Scallops.
I'm not one for Eastern scallops. I don't like seafood.
Oh, I like them. So that's the basis on which you're doing this assessment. That's the background, and it covers 2 pages of the background. Now, the next thing is your internal and external environments bit, and this is the bit I was obviously thinking about. When the first block of 4 is the SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Bear in mind, so you don't get confused, that excuse me, these things really, these SWOTs are really in two halves. The strengths and the weaknesses are internal and part of your organisation and your processes. Think of them as inside your fence, right? And the opportunities and threats are outside the fence, tending to be mainly external. And so people sort of look for, part of that, the idea is that people look outside the organisation for opportunities and threats. Now, I don't think I've got this entirely right, but I think I'm roughly right. There are more people selling TVs and appliances and washing machines and all that sort of thing than there need to be in New Zealand, and certainly in Greymouth. So they're in rabid competition. Smith City, Leemings, Ellery's, Warehouse, and in Christchurch, Harvey Norman, big time, and others down there. That's massive competition. So any one of those will be a threat, will be that the margins will drop, the competition will increase. And I stood and watched in the weekend, pretty much, almost literally, a price of a television set going down $300 from the starting point where we were talking about it to what we actually eventually, a couple of days later, walked out. Because the rep had come in and dropped the price yet again because of the competition. So in that shop, it was Ellery's, I don't think, in that shop they clearly will be getting less and less margin to work on to cover costs and things. And so clearly they will also be looking for opportunities. What can we do about this? Now, rightly or wrongly, they've evidently decided they're going to have a go at bedding for some reason. They must have seen a gap in the bedding. I'm not sure I know where it's come from, but that's the choice they've made. And if you look around, you can see a bit of what's going on of people moving into other businesses as well as what they have perhaps been doing traditionally, looking for opportunities. In the tourist area, there will be opportunities that we probably haven't seen yet. New Zealand and the West Coast has been pretty good with this adventure tourism thing, going down rivers and rafts and all the rest. But there's a bit of an interest starting to come through in two areas at least worldwide, and New Zealand will gain from it. The first is specialist tourism, where people come out who form one particular group, like steam locomotive enthusiasts or something like that. And if you can put together packages that might suit particular groups, there will be some future there. The other one that there seems to be a tremendous interest in, and I think we'll get it here too, is heritage tourism and sort of amateur archaeology. Like, I don't know how many of you people would identify with this, but it's reasonably interesting poking around in places like the old mine sites and picking up bottles and tripping over a dirty rate flywheel that's sitting in the middle of the bush and so on, isn't that? Really?
Sounds like my husband. Just go to the back of Ross, you know.
I have. Peter, a good look.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing does seem to be quite fascinating all around the world and here. Right. The top four then are strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, or SWOT. Then there is the pestle, which is covering 2 pages. Now, we better read these carefully. Where are we? Right. That question one there looks reasonably straightforward, doesn't it? But where students lose their marks with these is they sometimes write good little paragraphs and whatnot, but they don't relate it back to Scully scallops. They write about it more generally. And so you need to talk about the potential impact on Scully scallops when you're talking about these things. What's his name? Roger, isn't it? Roger will have to X, or Scully's will have to Y. Technology. There's some interesting things going on in those fish factories actually. Can't think of the name of it. There's a deep sea fish, which is very popular. Oreo dory or something like that. Orange Ruffy. Well done, Karen. Very tasty fish. However, because the orange ruffy occurs in very deep water, it has a thick fatty skin to insulate it. And the problem with the fatty skin and the fat underneath is it's poisonous. And so they have these quite complicated and I think quite clever fish skinning things for orange ruffy. You know how when you stick your hand on something that's really icy and really frozen cold and your hand sticks? Mm-hmm. Right. So if you can imagine, the fish comes along and skin side down onto a frozen drum roller, so it sticks on the rock like that, and then a very sharp blade comes around which goes under that poisonous fatty layer, and the fish is left without a fatty layer on the skin and all the rest goes off to the... Quite clever that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the previous sort of class, maybe last semester or something, sort of related that story to this.
The frozen drum?
No, the stuff about the orange ruffy.
Oh yes,
How
yes.
sort of because it's so difficult to process.
Well, I remember it because the union for the fish processors was very pushy. You know, it never occurred to me the union might object to one of those fish machines going in, but they came basically to, oh, that's a machine, you know, about the workers sort of thing. They had to be a bit careful about that. Right, the next one for Scully's scallops. Number 2. Using the case study, identify one resource available for Scully scallops in each of the following categories. Human resources, financial resources, physical resources, technological resources, information. Once again, make sure that you're ending up talking about Scullies. Don't say that if he floated on the share market he could have $1 million financial resources. You need to just relate it to Scullies and suggesting or commenting on something that's fairly realistic. And the human thing, I think he's going to have to talk about, from memory, Scully or Roger's going to have to talk about increasing production to match the Chinese or something, isn't he? I think that's part of the project there somewhere. Anyway, number 3, use the organisation opportunity matrix, page 87. Yeah, down the bottom of page 87. Question 3. Question 4. Now, this is ethics and social responsibility, and I think that was what you did before Kate went off. That was the last one you did with Kate. Is that right? Have I got that right?
I think so, yeah.
So some of these are all good stuff for you people that like to talk about. workplace ethics and so on. So you've got to find for 1 mark, don't try too hard for that. Identify 1 ethical issue that arises. Question 5. How would you approach it from each of the following ethical viewpoints? Immoral, amoral, moral. So fairly short mark questions those, so you don't need to get too carried away. They will, if you haven't covered those, they will be in the textbook chapter. Or on the slides, you've probably got slides handouts for those. Number 6, ethical climate. Question 7, 3 main viewpoints on social responsibility. The invisible hand, the hand of government and the hand of management. So hand of government's when the government requires you to be ethical, like safety in the workplace, that sort of thing. And the management is where management might lead some things that it can do. And hand of God means that it happens from outside, really, one way or another. Implications of the shift into the Chinese market for sustainability. Give 1 recommendation to Roger about what he can do to ensure the organisation remains sustainable. Now, the bit we've been doing here. So, partly opinion and partly from your text or your handouts, why it is necessary for Scully Scallops to have strategic plans and operational plans, or why it is good for them to have them. Question 11, the thing of goals. Now, you need to be a little bit careful with this. Number 1, do you know what a SMART goal is?
Something measurable,
Specific,
measurable,
measurable,
in time.
realistic, and time.
achievement,
Relevant.
realistic or relevant, take your pick,
Time.
there's a bit of variation, in time. So she will be looking when you're writing a strategic goal that it meets each of those things.
Can we just repeat that? I might have been away for that class.
Okay?
Downstairs.
Right, SMART. Specific,
Yep.
measurable,
Oh, sorry, yep.
achievable.
Yep.
Seems to be a little bit of uncertainty. There's 2 schools of thoughts on this one. I'll be saying realistic.
Okay.
And T is time.
Thank you.
Time thing, by the end of the year or by the end of the month or something like that. So remember that the strategic goal is a long-term goal over a period of 3 to maybe 5 years. A tactical goal is how you are going to get there, things you're going to do to get out there, what tactics will you use. And the operational goal is how you will achieve and control the things you have set up in the tactical goal, performance measurements and things like that. Then you've got how the 6 steps of the control process, question 12. Now that was up on your, oops, the slides disappeared. But that was the process that was very clear there. 6 steps. And an example of each of the following types of control occurring at Scully's Scallops. So that's feed forward and concurrent. They're the 2 from tonight. Now, having just about written all the answers for you, I'll just say to you, if you run into any troubles over the next few days while you're doing that, don't go round and round in circles stressing. You're welcome to flick in an email. If I don't want to tell you, I'll tell you that. All right?
Yeah, cheers, Ian.
Happy with that? Yep.
So, sorry, is,
Yeah, go for it.
obviously not being nosy or anything, but does it look like Kate's coming back any time, or are we going with you now, or?
My guess is she might do one or possibly two next week, and it's more likely to be the following week. And she will mark the assessments, not me.
Gotcha.
Alrighty?
Your class next week
Yep.
or not?
Okay.
She did us know if it's going to be a class next week.
No, there will be a class next week. The only question will be who's taking it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cheers, Ian.
Righto.
So that answers it.
Thank you.
Now we've got the leadership ones due tomorrow night, Yeah, I'll get that in. If I don't email it,
Oh, good.
I'll email it before class tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Right, all right. There's it. See you. See you. Individualism.
So yeah,
Cheers.
Yeah,
Makes a difference between culture. So this is where people sort of can be encouraged to act individually, or the other cultures they act more in a group sense, like the Japanese, it's all sort of groupy, you know.
Yeah.
And so suggest two potential considerations for New Zealanders of European origin in leadership roles in New Zealand businesses. What that's asking you to consider is, now hang on a minute, this individualism is going to vary a bit. So South Africans might be a little bit more controlling and expect that, and won't necessarily perform terribly well if you're not pushing them a bit, sort of letting them.
More to be
Yeah.
confirmed, yeah.
And if you've got Asians or Filipinos or Chinese or Indians or something like that, they are going to be more used to being told what to do and not be encouraged to act individually. That's really what it's all about.
Okay. So make two potential considerations for New Zealanders of European origin in leadership role.
Well, I mean, you could say that the first thing is that different cultures will be different than the people of European origin. So that's the first thing. To sort of recognise that there are differences.
Yes.
And then they go on to the individualism thing and perhaps give an example of
Like the South African, like the Asians and stuff like that, how they want to be leaders,
Expected.
well, they have to be, yeah. Awesome. Okay. So we're sort of going round and round in circles today.